This is my WWE Payback 2015 pay-per-view review. The pay-per-view small there a little while ago. As far as my thoughts on this show, it was like a lot of WWE pay-per-views this year that are the B shows, which are nothing more than like a 3-hour Raw, just without all the talking, and a lot of some better matches. That's pretty much what you got out of this. But this was better, a little better than Extreme Rules was. You had a few things on here that were were bad, but not too many bad matches. Stuff that I did like on this show, the main event was really good. The Fatal 4-Way match, even as much as I hate it that you had another pay-per-view main event, which the whole thing centered around Kane. You still had a lot of great action in the main event with, all three former members of the Shield, Rollins, Ambrose, and Reigns, and Orton did his thing in there as well. So the main event was really entertaining for what it was. Could have been a little better, and it probably would have been a great match if you didn't have Kane in there at all, but it was still a really, really good main event. And the other two things that were good on this show that I would actually say that if you do check anything out on this would be the tag team title match with the New Day versus Kid and Cesaro in the 2 out of 3 falls match. Even though the ending was a little weak, it was still a very, very good tag team match. And them two are having a really good feud over the tag team titles, in my opinion, at the current moment. And in 2 weeks, at the Elimination Chamber, not pay-per-view, but special event they're going to be doing for the network. They're going to be having the tag team titles and the IC title on the line in 2 separate chamber matches. And then the other match that was fairly good was John Cena versus Rusev. That's going to be a match that I probably liked a lot more than other people, because I know some people really do not like the whole Cena and Rusev feud matches they've been having, but this was actually probably one of their better ones. Even though there were a few, sloppy spots in it and a few botches, it was still, solid match for them. Nothing great, but a solid match. So you had, those 3 matches that were fairly good. You didn't have anything that was going to be remembered down the line as far as a match of the year or anything. So you didn't see anything necessarily excellent on here, but you saw a number of solid matches. So like I said, it was like a 3-hour Raw, just a good 3-hour Raw with a number of good wrestling matches and not much talking. That's pretty much what the show was like, and that's what's to be expected, especially with WWE doing the WWE Network and the events basically being $9.99 per show. That other than Mania, other than maybe SummerSlam, for the most part, you're going to get just a lot of B shows that are just a little bit better than the television. That's pretty much what we're always going to be given with a lot of these shows. But let me get into my review. The pre-show had 2 matches, one that wasn't advertised, and that was R-Truth versus Stardust. This wasn't much of a match at all. Couldn't get into it. Just really not good match at all. And R-Truth surprisingly actually picked up the victory over Stardust. 1-star match. Didn't do anything for me. Then the next matchup was the Ascension versus the Mega Powers of Curtis Axel doing Axelmania, and Damien Sandow doing Macho Mandow. And for just the entertainment of it, and it was a comedy match, that's what it was, it served its purpose. Now, for a wrestling match, it was pretty awful. But for what it was intended to be, which was just nothing more than a free match for the fans to, kind of get into the show and just put something out there for entertainment's sake, it served its purpose. So at least in that case, it did what it needed to be. But match-wise, it was pretty awful. And the Ascension won the match after pinning Damien Sandow, or Macho Mandow, in the match. So the Ascension pick up the victory. 1.5 stars at best. It was at least entertaining, but match-wise, it was pretty awful. Then the first match of the actual pay-per-view portion of the show was Sheamus versus Dolph Ziggler. This was a really good match to start the pay-per-view off with. The crowd was into this. Started off really fast with a lot of back-and-forth action, really fast-paced to begin with. Then Sheamus then slowed the match down. It became very slow and methodical. Sheamus working over Dolph Ziggler, and then Dolph getting his stuff in, and just ended up being a pretty solid match to start the show off with. And within this match, Dolph Ziggler gets busted open the hard way. He hits Sheamus with a headbutt, and he gets busted open the hard way after that, so he's bleeding profusely. And then Sheamus pretty much kicks him with a bro kick, but he was Dolph Ziggler was pretty much out of it so much he barely could get up, so just kicked him with a bro kick, a really shitty bro kick, took him down, and Sheamus gets the victory here. And I would not be surprised if, especially with him hitting the headbutt and then getting busted open the hard way, Dolph Ziggler probably suffered a concussion in this match. But it was a solid opener and just a decent match to kick off the pay-per-view portion of the show. 3 1/4 stars. Pretty solid match, like I said. Then the next matchup was one of the matches that I was looking forward to the most on the show, which was the WWE Tag Team title match, the 2 out of 3 falls match with the New Day versus Tyson Kidd and Cesaro. And these two teams work very well with each other. You know, as bad as the New Day gimmick is, the talent of Big E, and Kofi Kingston still shine. They're great competitors, even with as bad of a gimmick they got. And Cesaro is great, like he always is. The first fall was really, really good stuff. Always loved the one spot that that Cesaro and Big E do against each other, where he catches him in the air and slams him down with a body slam. That's where the power slam. That's a really cool spot they always do. And just Cesaro and Big E, they work really well with each other. They click in the ring a lot, and with the fast-paced action of Kofi Kingston and Tyson Kidd, they worked really well with each other. So just great tag team action here. The first fall went to having the New Day won the first fall after Kofi pinned not Kofi, but actually the first fall went to Kidd and Cesaro, my bad, and Kidd pinned Kofi, and they won the first fall. Then the second fall went to the New Day with Kofi getting the pin on Kidd, so back and forth, them getting victories against each other there. Then the third fall, and this was the one part that didn't ruin it too much because the New Day are heels, even though with the gimmick. You kind of aren't sure if WWE's trying to make them heels or baby faces, but they are supposed to be heels, and that's what the whole gimmick is with the whole positive thing. So they are supposed to be heels. So the way the match ends is the ref was distracted, and he didn't see what happened, went back behind him, and you had Cesaro get rolled up by Xavier Woods. Xavier Woods came in there, rolled him up. The referee didn't notice. Thought it was Kofi Kingston. So the New Day retained the titles in a cheap fashion there, which makes sense for them being heels, and especially with them having the tag team titles on the line at the Elimination Chamber event that's going to be on the WWE Network. Makes sense to kind of have the match end here and continue the feud and have it end in a cheap fashion. But even with the ending, it was still a damn good tag match and really good action there. A lot of great stuff from both teams. 3.5 stars. Really enjoyed the match a lot. Then the next matchup was Bray Wyatt versus Ryback, or what probably should be called the two talents that have not gone anywhere since their Cena feud, and have been pretty much ruined their whole entire career and pretty much been jobbers. The match wasn't as bad as what I was expecting. I was expecting a lot worse. It was at least a watchable match, and at least Bray Wyatt did pick up the win, which that's a shocker right there that Bray Wyatt actually picks up the win on pay-per-view. And he picks up the win after hitting Sister Abigail on Ryback. Wasn't a terrible match, but it wasn't anything to write home about. It was watchable at best, 2 stars. Then the next matchup was Rusev versus John Cena for the U.S. title in an I Quit match. This was really good. Probably the best match they've had against each other. It was definitely better than last month's match, which I thought was probably the best match they had against each other. The I Quit match is probably the best in their series, so it's a good way to end their feud with having their best match against each other be the last match, even though with the ending, they kind of might still be able to open up to another match, but I doubt they will. This has to be the end of the feud, because when you do I Quit, you really don't got that much more where you can go, because there's nothing that can beat an I Quit match for the most part. So this probably is going to be the end of the feud, but stuff you saw in here, you saw the Steel Steps get involved, you saw Rusev taking AA to the stairs, and they brawled outside the ring, brawled back up the rampway into the crowd. Then did a really good spot in here where Cena was getting this equipment cartridge and tried to roll it and hit Rusev. Rusev hit him with a super kick. That was really good. And there was one spot that was going to look awesome in here, but unfortunately it was very sloppy. You had Rusev doing the one thing, trying to hit Cena with the Alabama Slammer and slamming him through a table, but he did it twice in here, and it looked weak both times. Then you saw a guardrail get involved in here. You saw Cena hit Rusev with it. Then it got placed on up against the ring, and Cena goes through that. And then at the end of it, you have Rusev. He takes off the top turnbuckle, chokes Cena out. Cena is completely out. He's passed out, and Rusev is trying to win and trying to pick the victory up here, but the referees explained to him that you don't win the match with your opponent passing out. He has to say the words "I quit." And then, obviously, in typical Cena fashion and the predictable outcome, Cena ends up coming back and then then locks in the STF to Rusev, and then Lana gets worried here. She gets on the mic and says, "I quit," and Lana pretty much gives up the match for Rusev. So, obviously, right there with Lana giving up the match and saying "I quit" for Rusev's sake. That's going to continue with the whole rift between Lana and Rusev, and obviously WWE's idea of possibly having Lana break away from Rusev and become a babyface, which would be kind of weird with her being a babyface, especially if they're going to continue doing the Russian gimmick with her. But Rusev has shown in recent months that he can pretty much talk on his own, so he's not going to be hurt as bad as what you would expect with not having a manager. But the one thing that has gotten Rusev over the most, which might be the detriment of him because he's supposed to be, the most hated guy because of his Russian gimmick, and Lana's pretty much been giving him almost somewhat of a babyface vibe to a degree. And obviously, when you take on Cena, this crowd's still going to be 50-50, even with an anti-Russian, with a pro-Russian character and anti-Russian gimmick of Rusev. But this was a really good I Quit match. I enjoyed it a lot, and obviously, this is going to be the end of the feud for the most part. We'll obviously continue to see more stuff with Rusev and Lana and them ending up splitting apart from each other on screen. And then the next matchup, well, as far as that match, about 3.5 stars. Really good I Quit match. Wasn't anything spectacular, but it was entertaining for what it was. And then the next matchup was Tamina, Snuka, and Naomi versus the Bella Twins. This was just your average, typical Divas match. Nothing special at all. Just the pretty much piss break of the evening. No one cared about this match. And you had Naomi pick up the win after pinning Nikki Bella. So with her pinning Nikki Bella, that opens up, I guess, at them doing the special event at the Elimination Chamber. They'll do a women's title, a Divas title match with Naomi and Nikki Bella. So that's the route they're going with there. Which I like Naomi a lot, but Nikki Bella just is not good in the ring, and this was just a very, very bad women's match. I would probably give it a dud, maybe 1 star at best. Then the next matchup was Wade Barrett versus Neville. This was a solid match. It wasn't anything great, but it was a solid match. Neville gotten all his, high spots, his fast-paced action, and Barrett loses this match via count-out, so Neville does pick up the win on pay-per-view. And then at the end of the match, you have Wade Barrett come in there, attack Neville. Then Neville gets the upper hand, hits the red arrow, so Neville looks strong going out of this. And obviously, I would expect with them doing the IC title match, we probably got at least 4 of the people that might be in the Elimination Chamber, at least what you would guess who would be in the Elimination Chamber, which would be, these two, Wade Barrett and Neville, and probably Dolph Ziggler and Sheamus. I guess we'll find out who the other 2 might be. I'm not sure who else they would add into it at this current moment, because they're kind of like teetering Dean Ambrose towards the main event, so maybe he'll still be in the Elimination Chamber for the IC title, since obviously tonight was probably just a one-night opportunity for him to be in the main event, so probably he would be involved in that as well, and maybe Luke Harper as well, even though they got Luke Harper and Eric Rowan back with each other. But as far as the Neville and Wade Barrett match, it was a solid match. Nothing great, but it was good for what it was. Just a match you would expect seeing on Raw, though, so it was nothing too special. 2.5 stars at best. And then the main event, which was the WWE Fatal 4-Way match for the WWE title with Randy Orton versus Dean Ambrose versus Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins. And obviously, the one gimmick of this match was if Seth Rollins lost the title in this match, Kane would be fired. So obviously, we'd have to see what was Kane going to do in this match. Was he going to help Seth Rollins here and protect his job? And obviously, that's what he did in the match. And even with the whole idea of 2 months in a row, we have Kane involved as the storyline and the main focus. Instead of the title being the main focus, you have Kane being the main focus, which is a terrible thing to do right there. But even with Kane's involvement, this was a fun main event. It's not something that people are going to say is going to be a top match of the year or anything, but it was a very fun main event. It turned out much better than I was thinking it was going to be, especially with Kane's involvement, because I thought that was going to be the detriment of the match. That was going to really hurt the match a lot, but it didn't hurt it too bad. The parts he was involved with made sense, and he didn't get involved as much as you thought he would have, and obviously he played a role at the end of the match, which was to be expected, but it wasn't as bad as what I was expecting it to be. But you saw a lot of great stuff in this match. I loved everything with Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose. They click well with each other in the ring. Great action with back and forth action with them two. Orton got in his stuff, and Roman Reigns, I mean, he is always on his game on pay-per-views. I mean, he never looks bad on pay-per-view. That's the one thing everyone has, even people that don't like Roman Reigns, has to give Roman Reigns credit that anytime there's a pay-per-view, Roman Reigns, it showcases his A game and just goes out there and looks great. You saw him do the dive over the top rope to all three other competitors, and J&J Security took them out. That was a great spot, and love the moment in the match where you had all former 3 members of the Shield with Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns, and you had Orton down, and they were all staring at each other, and what are they going to do? They all start kicking Orton, kicking him down. Then they do the old Shield triple power bomb to Orton through the announce table, take Orton out right there. Then Rollins, is being cocky and acting like, I'm back on your side, Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns. They don't take that. They beat him down. Great stuff right there. And then you had another table spot with Kane getting powerbombed to the table. They actually do it twice. The table didn't break the first time. They powerbombed him onto the other announce table that Seth Rollins was on. Didn't break the first time. Then Ambrose and Reigns did the powerbomb the second time. So you had Kane out there for a little bit. Then you saw Orton get involved towards the end of the match. He finally came back to it. He got in there with Rollins, and the crowd was really hot for Orton here. Orton. I don't know who you would say was the most over in this match. The crowd, when Orton was in there at the end, and the crowd was like they wanted Orton to win the title and beat Seth Rollins. The crowd was really into him, but Ambrose is really over. I mean, I've always been a fan of Dean Ambrose, even before his WWE career, and I just never would have thought that he would actually have connected with the WWE crowd as well as he has, but I'm glad that he has, and the crowd just loves him, and obviously with that, at some point in the future, he's definitely going to be a future World Heavyweight Champion, probably Roman Reigns as well. I would expect out of them two, Roman Reigns probably to get it a little earlier, but at the end of the match, you had Kane get involved in there. Orton takes him out with an RKO. Then Seth Rollins hits the pedigree onto Randy Orton to retain the title. So he hits Triple H's move, the pedigree, to retain the title here, which made sense, especially with Orton. And Seth Rollins retains the title here. And this was a fun main event. It wasn't anything, like I said, that it was anything that people are going to remember for a long time. But for a show that is nothing more than an average pay-per-view, nothing more than just a better version of Raw without commercials and not too much talking segments and just a little better wrestling. You got, a really fun main event. The crowd was into it. And the ending made perfect sense when, the kind of cheap victory of Seth Rollins walking out with still being champion. And obviously you knew he was going to retain here. And thankfully, Kane's involvement didn't kill the match. Last month when they did the match at Extreme Rules and Kane was involved, that killed the match right there when they did the steel cage match. Tonight, they used him like they should have, and it made perfect sense with the whole, stipulation and gimmick with the match of Kane's involvement. So it didn't hurt the match, and probably the main event definitely was the best match of the night. The only thing that probably came close was probably the I Quit match and maybe the tag team match, but I would say the match tonight was definitely the main event. I would probably give it, 3.5 stars, maybe even 3 and 3/4 stars, because I really did enjoy the main event a lot. A lot of great action in there. But as far as the overall show, this isn't a show I would say you need to rush to go out your way to see, but if you do see it, you will see a number of good matches. The main event, like I said, was really good, and the I Quit match was fairly good, and the tag match. But for the most part, it was it felt like an average show. So overall, I would give the show about, maybe a 7 out of 10. It was definitely much better than Extreme Rules. That's the one thing I got to give it. And then in 2 weeks, we have another WWE event with Elimination Chamber. So hopefully that will be much better. I would expect with 2 chamber match, especially the intriguing idea of the tag team titles on the line in there, and the IC title, and the talent that should be involved in both of them. We should probably get a really good show there, but probably for the most part, it's probably just going to feel like a B-level show, because WWE, for the most part, other than big shows and maybe once in a while, they're only going to give us great, great shows, from time to time. Most of the other events that are pay-per-views, which for a long time, even before the WWE Network, a lot of these shows were B shows anyway, but now they're definitely, glorified B shows, sometimes just better than Raw shows for the most part. But overall, I give this a 7 out of 10. Wasn't a terrible show, but wasn't a great show either, but a number of good things did take place. So that's it for my WWE Payback 2015 pay-per-view review. All right, peace.